There we go. Okay. So here's the agenda, what we'll go over today, just some quick introductions. For those of you on the call, if you could just type who you are and who you're representing into the chat. I think in a couple cases, there may be a room full of people on one Zoom window. So it'd be great if you can just list who's in the room, and that way we know who we've reached and who we haven't today. But rather than do that in the call, if you could just do that in the chat, that would be great. I'll go over just a very brief background of the program. You'll get to know our grant writers. We'll go over the rules, which is I'm sure what everyone's really here about. And then we'll provide the platform for our localities to talk a little bit about their priorities, and then have some general Q&A. So pretty straightforward agenda. And I think we'll get started. So as an overview, I think many of you have kind of heard this already in one way or another, but just to make sure we're all on the same page, what this grant writing bench program is coming from is a pool of funds by the Appalachian Regional Commission that have come as a result of a lot of the federal dollars that are moving through the Infrastructure Reduction, or Inflation Reduction Act, not Infrastructure Reduction Act. That's the opposite of what we're trying to do here. And the Infrastructure Investment and Jobs Act, and some of these other pandemic relief programs. A lot of these programs had this money programmed with big competitive grants, nationally competitive grants, and the Appalachian Regional Commission recognized that that put their communities at a disadvantage against communities that had grant writing staff or a lot of experience writing and understanding, frankly, some of these federal grants. So with this program, the commission applied for and received $100,000 that we have to spend over the next 2 years. So our goal is on your behalf to get all this money spent and get some projects in the pipeline. This money will fully fund project development and grant writing services. So everything that is up until the grant is submitted can be done under these Ready LDD funds. Any sort of project administration or additional support still be able to be provided by the commission through our ARC planning funds or some other kind of method, but we're not relying on our grant folks to do any project administration once, assuming anything is funded. They are just helping you to get that grant out the door, get a competitive grant into whatever appropriate portal for the feds, and then we will work with you to the extent necessary from there for additional project implementation and administration. We are generally, because these are ARC funds, we are generally looking for and prioritizing, and you'll see this a little bit later, projects that align with ARC's investment priorities. Those are very broad, so a lot of things will fit underneath there. I think someone has apologize, someone's got their microphone on. Thank you, sorry about that. These investment priorities are pretty broad and cover most of the things that you're likely going to want to do, but we are going to try to focus on those project areas when we sort of select grants to move forward on. So that said, that's just a very brief background. What I'm going to do now is I've just put everyone in alphabetical order. That's why you're in this list. But if you can kind of go down this list, and for our grant writing bench, if you wouldn't mind just briefly introducing yourself, projects that you may have worked on in the region, and your particular area of expertise on the federal side, assuming you have one, and just share that with our folks. And we'll start with Tracy Garland.
Senior program manager at a company called TRC, or environmental engineering consulting firm. The division that I work for has historically specialized in funding and incentives for clean transportation, but we were recently acquired by TRC, and so we're kind of expanding and leveraging TRC's expertise in the utilities. funding and financing for grid resilience as well. Right now, I'm toileting a project and proposal preparation for like an EPA climate pollution reduction grant, CPRG, for the Council of Governments, and then doing some work in California for the California Energy Commission charging infrastructure for government fleets for LA County. So that's kind of what I'm working on now. Prior to this, I was programs and development director for a nonprofit called Resilient Virginia. I also worked out of Bradford University running the environmental management assistance program. And I did a lot of independent consulting for local organizations like the Conflict Resolution Center, New Life First Center, the Center for Energy Association of Energy Conservation Professionals. And so in those roles, I kind of led or supported applications to all kinds of funders, federal, state, and also EPA, DOE, DOT, USDA, ARC, HUD, Virginia Department of Energy, Social Services, and local foundations like the Energy Foundation, Virginia Environmental Endowment, and so forth. So yeah, so that's kind of my role. I've been doing funding, financing, grant writing, project development for a while. So thank you, Jeremy. I appreciate the opportunity and can't wait to meet you all.
My turn. Hi, folks. I'm Zach Hall. I currently live in Riverside, California, which is inland, Southern California. But I'm coming to you today from Athens County, Ohio, Appalachian, Ohio, which is where I worked for 11 years before moving to California. And I'm trying to get my way back to this part of the country. So my professional background is 10 years in Baltimore, Maryland, citywide leadership roles in the city planning department, and then a program development, including a lot of grant writing at a community-based institution. Then in Ohio, I worked for the Voinovich School at Ohio University, which did a lot of consulting with the state and local and regional entities around a wide variety of things, but I tended to focus on economic development. I ran an economic development focused social enterprise there and turned it around from failing to pretty impactful over the course of 6 years, which was story building, grant writing, all that. I've been doing consulting on the side for over 10 years, and that began doing regional economic development proposals for the state designated regional development entity in southeastern Ohio, 32 counties. So that focused on cluster and industry sector focused economic development strategies, integrated economic development with workforce development. Did a lot of distributed manufacturing work there to focus on the region wood products industry and the way it works. Started up a regional CDFI. So since in California, I've had the opportunity, both independently with a national firm, to do work with clients in 10 states, plus DC, strategic planning, program development. And so now after that combined with my prior experience, I've got a 91% success rate with federal proposals for $29 million. And in recent years, that's been economic development stuff and infrastructure where I'm sure you guys are familiar with the nature of a lot of that legislation. It may be about electric vehicle charging, which is what my proposals was about. But it's very much about equity and workforce development and environmental restoration. You've got to have those stories even to be considered for these awards. And so for that, I wrote the model proposal for a team that produced 4 proposals, 4 of which succeeded, and we got 4 of the 10 awards that came to California. So I'm putting that out there just because I think partnering with utility companies that have expertise in whatever they're delivering is a great model for some of this stuff, that they can combine that with a proposal writer who understands kind of telling the broader range of stories.
Thanks, Zach. June.
Yes, I'm June House. I have my own business, JH Grant Services. Not very sophisticated name there, but it does the job. I have been working for 25 years. I worked in nonprofit management, and for the last year, I have been just running my own business, grant service business. For the last 8 months, I've been focused on technology. I just finished a 45-day project at $64.5 million in technology. And that's really where I've been focused for the last 8 months, is helping corporates and nonprofits very large nonprofits on technology acquisition. So that has been mostly, I've worked on federal grants in HHS, DOJ, NEH, USDA, and a host of other proposals. I have a contract with Roanoke College and write for them for until the end of June, and just have a very wide interest in all kinds of different projects. But I've really enjoyed the technology area. So
Excellent, thanks. David? I think you're muted, David.
Better? David Nova. I am the owner and sole person at Blue Blaze Consulting LLC. I've had this business for 9 years now. I have been in nonprofit management for about 30 years prior to that, primarily in Boston for Amnesty International, in DC for Amnesty International, where I was deputy director of the Mid-Atlantic region. Then I moved to Roanoke and worked for Planned Parenthood of the Blue Ridge on various positions, including as president and CEO for 10 years. When my wife retired, I started Blue Blaze Consulting so that I could do this work while I traveled and enjoyed her retirement as well as my partial retirement. It's not really a retirement at this point. My business is primarily doing grant writing, business plans, and strategic planning. I used to do work outside of Virginia from time to time. I really try and concentrate on the Roanoke Valley and greater Roanoke area at this point. It's just where my interests lie, and I like to be able to see what the results of some of the work that I do happen in the community. I've written all sorts of grants, state, federal, local. I know you want to concentrate on federal. I've written, most of those grants are written for organizations like Carillion. I write a number of grants for Carillion and Goodwill. CAP contacted me this morning. I'll be writing a Department of Juvenile Justice grants for them in the next month. Department of Health. Department of Health, I've probably written the most grants, CMS, HRSA, the National Institutes of Health, Population Affairs, SAMHSA, Health Information Technologies. That's probably all the different sub-agencies within the Department of Health that I've written grants for. I've written a number of Department of Labor grants also, primarily employment and training administration, which is where virtually all their grants come from. Done some work in the Department of Education and HUD grant funding, but that's not been directly with, for federal grants. That's usually subcontracted money that comes through municipalities or through the state, primarily the state. And I'll answer any questions you have.
Thanks, David. And Amy?
Hi, good afternoon. Thank you for this opportunity. My name is Amy Thornton, and my business name is Valley Writing Services. I'm located in Weir's Cave, Virginia, which is between Stanton and Harrisonburg. I've been a grant writer now for 17 years, was a technical writer before that, and have had Valley Writing Services now for 14 years. Primary focus areas have been health and human services and education. But then I've also worked with art and cultural nonprofits as well. The whole spectrum of grant funding, private, corporate foundations, as well as state and federal. Federal focus, I would say I have the most experience with USDA and the various sub-departments in USDA. I also have experience with FEMA, Department of Justice, HUD, Virginia DHCD, and Virginia Department of Education. And then telehealth grants through FCC as well as the USDA DLT grants. And I, have helped in all, I can assist with the entire process from prospect research, writing the proposals, preparing the budgets. Yeah, so again, thank you.
Okay, thanks. So this is our all-star starting team, but I do want to point out that, our goal at the commission is to give our member localities, I guess, the deepest bench possible, to make sure we can go after everything that we want to go after. So we're open to continuing to bring people on. So, for our local government attendees, if there are other folks that you know of, or that you've worked with in the past that you would like to see on the bench, please let me know. We can have rolling applications as necessary. But we're very excited to have these 5 folks on with us to get this project kicked off. So let's get into the nuts and bolts of how we do this. We've tried to make this as simple as possible so we can get projects moving as quick as possible. So what I do want to start with is, requesting a project. One of the primary rules we're going to look at here is that any projects to tap into these funds need to come from the chief administrative officer of our member localities, of our ARC localities. That does not mean we're not happy to work with other partners, nonprofits, other organizations, even for-profit if it qualifies, but we will only kind of take on the project if it's got that stamp of approval from our county administrators, town managers, and city managers. So if someone comes to us, we're going to send them back to you if they're not you. But if you've got questions, we're happy to talk to you about finding that good fit. And as long as that is a request of the locality, we're happy to work with whoever the eventual recipient of the funding might be. But we want to make sure that we only pursue things that are in line with our local government's needs and plans. When you make a request, we're gonna kind of ask, and you can sort of see this in priority order, is we're gonna ask about the project scope. When you're making this call to me, do you know, do you have the grant? Have you read the NOFO? Have you seen the NOFO? And do you have a project already scoped out? And those are the kinds of things, obviously, we'll prioritize. I guess the best way is to use the now kind of overused term of shovel ready. Do you have a project that's ready to go, that's been waiting, and that matches with the grant? But that's not the only kinds of things we'll receive. If you have seen a grant that you know is or believe is a good fit for your community, but you're not sure if you've got a project or a fully formed project, or you've got a definite need, but not sure if there's a grant, you can also reach out to us. So some folks on the bench have mentioned they do the project development side as well. So if you need more help up front, we will try to match you with someone who has the capacity and the interest and skill to provide that help. Ideally, we would like to have projects that are more of that first bullet point, but we know that's not always the case. And we are often surprised by a grant announcement that comes out, so there may not be a project waiting in the wings. But just make sure when you reach out that you kind of have a sense of where you fit on that spectrum, so we know where to help you. And if there's something we can do on the commission side to help with project scoping as well, we will assist with that. The actual request is super easy. Just write me an email or give me a call and let me know that you've got something that you want to move forward. Do not contact David and June and Amy and Zach directly. If you want to access the funding, please reach out to us, because what we're trying to do is make sure that the project is recommended to someone who has the time and the capacity to do it. So I don't want someone getting a bunch of calls and overwhelmed. What we're here to do is help make sure things are distributed to support our grant writing bench and make sure the projects fit. At the very least, if you want to tap into the Ready LDD funds, make sure you make that request to me, and then we'll coordinate with the grant writer. After you've made the request, I will work with you, or someone on the commission staff will work with you to make sure we understand the project scope and the budget, all those sorts of things. And then we will do the job of coordinating with the bench to figure out where that best plugs in. And I do want to caution, we hope that there will always be someone with the time to take something when you make that request. But we cannot guarantee if everyone is busy working on a project, we may not be able to match your project and the grant immediately. So to that end, try to give us as much lead time as you can. Again, we know that's not always possible. We don't always see the opportunities. Announcements are made late or a project need pops up late. So we'll do our best to field that. But to the extent you can, the more lead time you give us, the more time we have to work with our bench to work with their schedules and maybe get something in that we couldn't otherwise get in. I don't want to constantly go to folks with a last minute, this is due Monday, it's Thursday, can you help us get something done? We'll try our best. We know that happens, but we want to try to avoid it as much as possible. And we may have to say no sometimes. We hope to do that as the least as possible. And if there's a case where the commission can help, we will do that as well. So we'll do our best to say yes, but I just want to kind of put that out there. Hopefully everyone's going to be busy, so we may not always be able to fit a project in where their time is. We are looking primarily for projects that are focused on federal grants. The source, this Ready LDD funding through the ARC is specifically kind of constructed to access these big pots of pandemic-related federal funding. It's not necessarily targeted at foundations or state funding or other sorts of programs. That said, we also know that some of this federal money is programmed through state pots, through formula programs and other things. So I will be happy to talk to you about other kinds of funding sources, particularly if you've got a project that really only fits into one particular spot and it's not a federal spot. We can have that conversation with ARC and see what exceptions we may be able to do. So it's not an automatic no, but the ARC is really focused on accessing these one-time pots of money and want to make sure that you have the resources to do that. Priority is given, kind of in this order, projects that come with a scope budget and a grant source identified, if you've got that. Projects that align with ARC investment priorities. Again, those are pretty broad, so most things you want should fit there. But if you've got something way out, it may not quite meet the priority. And projects that match the expertise of our bench. Yeah, I hope folks are always going to be excited to take on new projects, but just know that, if I'm asking someone to work in an area that they're not as familiar, there may be more time involved, there may be more research, there may be more expense on the Ready LDD side, and so that could take a little bit longer. So if we ever get into a time where we've got a bunch of projects competing for our bench's time, this is kind of what we're going to look at in terms of priorities. And then what will happen is once we go through that process, which hopefully won't take but 24, 48 hours to kind of go over the project and get something matched, I'm going to match you with one of our bench folks, and then we're going to get out of the way. So we'll notify the bench, we'll confirm, David, Amy, Tracy, you're ready to go. This is a good project. You've got the time. I'll issue a task order for them. And then you, as the locality, will work directly with the grant writer at that point to move that forward. We're happy to help. By we, the commission, our staff is certainly happy to help provide data assistance, but you don't need to have us part of every conversation if that delays moving things forward. So it's really up to you. Once we get you matched with someone, you're off to the races. Again, during that process, previous to that process, after, the commission will do what it has always done to provide technical assistance and convening and et cetera to our locality partners. So we're always going to be there, but the folks who are the experts at this will do the bulk of the work with getting a grant ready and out the door, and you should just plan working directly with them. So that's it. The rules are really that simple. You know, it should be as easy as calling me saying, this is what I've got. I'll call someone and say who's available and we'll get you going. And that really is the goal. We've got to spend this money in 2 years. So we want to facilitate getting grants into the pipeline as quickly as possible, so we can get them funded and implemented as quickly as possible. So are there any initial questions? And we'll have more time for Q&A at the end, but are there any initial questions from anyone about kind of those basic rules from either anyone on the call? I'm happy to try to answer anything. I don't see any hands going up or microphones being turned on, so it sounds like we are okay. So now what I'd like to invite folks to do, and I hope we have someone from every locality here, is just invite our representatives from our locality partners to share any immediate priorities, projects, anything that they're working on right now, just a couple of minutes, just so I and our bench kind of know what it is that you're looking at and that there's some sort of urgent need, and maybe we can identify, you know, some opportunities right away. So I'm just going to go down the list as we see it on the screen here. So is there someone from Allegheny County? If you feel free to turn your microphone off and introduce yourself and just share whatever you'd like.
Jeremy, this is James Griffith. Right now, Reed's not in, so I'm gonna pass on that one.
Okay. Thanks, James. And we'll, if you're not here or not able to share anything right now, of course, we can get you connected with our folks later. And then this presentation will be available to share with anyone who's not on the call today. So I don't know if we've got anyone from Botetourt. They were some of the folks who were not able to make it. Do I have a Botetourt person on the phone?
Hi, John Russ,
Oh,
Superintendent
there.
of Schools in Botetourt. And yeah, Gary and them sent this information to me. But no, I want to thank you all for your time and what you could provide. As of right now, we don't have anything going as far as a specific grant that needs to be written. But that is something that comes up. So we will keep this in mind. Thank you.
Thanks. Craig. I don't know if I see Dan Collins on the phone or not. Well, we will go Covington.
Hey, Thomas Miles, Director of Parks and Recreation. We've got some stuff going on. We're looking at some things with our sports complex with paving and different grants and stuff that I've worked with Alan with, and we're working with some of our engineering firms. And then we've got some kind of activities that are taking place. So we're really excited, and again, want to echo thank you all for doing this and providing this service. And we'll definitely be in touch to use you all.
Excellent, thank you. And Clifton Forge.
Yeah, this is Chuck Unroe, Town Manager. Again, just like everybody else, I want to thank you, Jeremy, and the commissions for bringing this service to us. It's much needed help and support for all of us. We don't have any specific projects right now, but we do have a lot of things in the chute that we're looking at: public transportation, always the battle of economic development, downtown revitalization. So I'm sure we're going to be coming to you with discussions and trying to get matched up with some help for some money for these projects. And again, just thank you for this.
My computer's not cooperating with unmuting. Well, thanks, Chuck. Well, thanks for sharing. And I know we'll hear more from our local folks later as your needs come up, and to all of you on the grant writing bench, if you already are thinking of something based on something someone said, please let me know and we'll get you connected. That's really all we wanted to do to get this started. I'm happy to answer any questions about the program, or if you've got questions for our grant folks. I hope I won't put them on the spot by making them available to answer anything, but please just unmute yourself and go for it. And well, I don't see anyone, so I guess we must have done an excellent job describing how this is going to work. So that's all I've got. So thank you, everyone. Oh, David.
I just wanted to thank you, Jeremy. I think this is a very innovative project you've come up with, connecting grant writers with the various entities that you support and trying to get grant writing done for them. I think it makes a lot of sense, and kudos to you, regardless of how it goes, for coming up with this project.
We're really appreciative to the ARC for making this funding available, and particularly for recognizing the disadvantage that a lot of small rural communities are at when grants are constructed as big competitive grants. I can't imagine what it's like to be Covington if you think you're going up against Pittsburgh, which is also an ARC community, right? So we're appreciative of the ARC and happy to be able to use this money to help our locality. So well, if there's no other questions, I think we'll make this a very short meeting today. Please feel free to reach out to me if anything comes up, and we're wide open now. So if you've got some project ideas, please let me know, and we'll always monitor our NOFOs and announcements from our grant agencies and share those out with our ARC communities to help maybe drive some ideas. So I think that's it. With that, I appreciate everyone's time today, and I'll let you get back to your afternoon. So have a great day.